Okay.
Okay, so thank you for coming. Today we are going to talk about course structure in an online course with some information about task predictability or module predictability. I'm Jen Lopshire. I'm an instructional designer over at OLS. So let's get started. So the things that in course structure that you can control, obviously, are the length of your lectures, your video recorded lectures, the sequence of content and activities, uh, periodic check-ins for understanding or frequent check-ins for understanding. You can control the passive versus active learning experience and making sure you have a healthy balance of both. And then the flow of the course. So today, really, the main things of these that we're going to be talking about would be lecture length, the sequence, and the flow of the course. So here are a couple things that you can do to implement into your course design process that will help provide students with a consistent course structure. So the first one, this is something I actually just recently learned about, but outlining the behavioral expectations. So somewhere in your course information or somewhere in your syllabus, have something, what I expect from you as a student and what you can expect from me as your instructor. Everybody then knows what everybody's expectations are, and you don't have to keep building as you go as far as that goes. Also, building your module skeleton first. For many people, this helps. Laying out your topics or laying out your weeks and just making sure that you have a module for each before you start adding content to the course. It's similar to, you know, when you make an outline for when you're writing a paper or doing research. Build in some short check for understanding activities. This could be something as like a discussion. It could be a poll. It could be a little quiz. But making sure that students throughout each of the modules are interacting and understanding the information, because it's to get down the road too far and then have to go back and fix what maybe there is a misunderstanding about. That's more difficult. So just doing it along the way. It's called formative assessment. Dividing long lectures into smaller bites. This is the one that is the most difficult for a lot of instructors because this requires, you know, a big shift in how you deliver your lecture. So if you're face-to-face and you're used to going in and speaking to your class, you know, for 45, 60 minutes, it's difficult to pay attention for that long, and it's even more difficult to pay attention for that long when you are not face-to-face interacting with somebody. So if you have a lecture that's that long, recommend taking a look and seeing where those natural breaks would be, and you know, trying to keep your videos somewhere around 10 to 15 minutes. Research shows that that's the best length for the brain. And then keep your naming conventions throughout the course and the instructional flow consistent with some minor variations along the way so that people don't get bored. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I go into the Canvas course, just to kind of show you what I mean. So let's go into my course. Do you have any questions before I get moving in here? Okay. Go. Hello. All right, so here's an example of an economics course that I helped to Professor build in a previous institution. So what we did is we wanted to make sure that students had a way to understand why this information is important and how it might relate to their lives. So you could put things in here that kind of make those real world connections to the content, and the why this is important for their learning. Whoops. Having your, it's not going to collapse. Having your syllabus as another module is also a good idea, or having a place where you have your course information as a module. There's a couple different ways to do that. You could have a module that's called your syllabus module, where you have each part of your syllabus divided down into a topic that's in the syllabus, or you could use the syllabus tool that is native to Canvas and put hyperlinks to certain pages that you develop. Okay, so let's take a look at the module structure. So you see we have 4 different modules here. They each have a title that relates to the content within that module. Some people that I've worked with in the past have put just module 1 or week 1, and what that doesn't do is it doesn't really give an anchor for students to take the content that you're giving them and the activities and really have a place to file it in their minds. So having the module structure set up with these sensical titles or topical titles is a good idea. So let's look into module 1. And this is what a typical module could look like. And the reason why I'm outlining this is because there's a bit of predictability to this and consistency. So my modules, for example, each of them has its own overview. Then, depending on how many lectures in a module or how many days within a module, you can divide them down into separate chunks. So let's take a look at the module 1 overview. And an overview is basically considered an advanced organizer, which we can talk about in a little bit. An advanced organizer that includes the summary of the content that's going to be covered in the module, the learning objectives that students need to meet, tasks and deliverables that they need to submit, and then any readings that will help them along the way. Now, yes, all of these things are going to be included within the module themselves, but it's a good idea to also have them listed here so that they know exactly what is expected from them for that module. Okay, let's go back. Everything's moved around. Okay. All right, so your module overview, so every module could have one of these. It could be a text like I just showed you, but it could also be a concept map, or it could be a short video where you as an instructor go over, okay, this week we're going to do, these are your objectives, here's what we're going to be reading, and here is the basic premise of the content you're going to be presented with this week. So it can be in multiple formats, but it's a great idea to include. And it's one of the simplest things that you can include in your modules to help with that course consistency and predictability. Now a bit more about that. So in lecture 1, you'll notice my naming conventions here. So I have module 1, and then the module 1 overview. And then for lecture 1, you could do something like M1, or you could do 1.1 instead of lecture 1. Any naming convention that helps students navigate the course in a consistent manner is helpful. So you could put your lecture in here, just notes that go with the lecture, or it could be a video that you've created of the lecture. Like I said before, making sure to kind of keep each of those chunks around 10 to 15 minutes if it's a longer bit of a lecture. So for lecture 1 activities, we have listen to the lecture, participate in the discussion, and read the reading. I didn't put a check for understanding in this first one because it's a 2-lecture module. And then again, for lecture 2, have your lecture, you would have your discussion for participation, and then a reading. And here's where you might want to add a little formative quiz or a poll or something that students submit, like a reflection paper, just to kind of get a feel for where they are and how they're interacting with your content. And then for each module after that, using the same kind of structure or using the same kind of flow. So you'll notice that I have lecture, discussion, reading, lecture, discussion, reading. Having that predictability reduces, students having to find things. It reduces the cognitive load, and it really helps you as you're developing the course so that you know exactly what flow you would like to go in. So when you go into a face-to-face course, you have a flow that you like to follow. And it's somewhat predictable, maybe not. But in online courses, because there are so many things that are unpredictable, having this piece be predictable is a good idea. Okay, so that is basically what one framework could look like. Now I've put something, if I can find it. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. And I've put a resource in the chat box. So this resource here we go. This resource has some videos that you can watch, some of our blogs through OLS. There's a couple of resources from other institutions, as well as some blogs and websites. Now I want to take a look at, there was one I found really neat, and I just need to figure out where I put it. Oh, so the Cal Poly template. This is in the Canvas Commons. So if you use the Canvas Commons within our instance of Canvas, you can get to it, or you could also just get to it on here. So, okay. So if we were to find filter and go to undergraduate and graduate, we could see lots of different resources for course structure. Whoops, did I spell that correct? Oh, let's get rid of St. Rose and go to the larger group. There we go. So here are some templates that you might want to take a look at. And really, these are just people who've gone in and they've organized a course and they found that it was a useful way to do it and they wanted to share with you. Has anybody used this before, the Canvas Commons?
Okay. I have.
So the Cal Poly is this template right here. Takes a second for it to load, but you'll see that they have very similar structure to what I was just talking about before. So we've got your welcome, we've got your syllabus, and then again, in week 1, in your topic, you've got that predictable flow so that students know what is expected of them for the week. There's an overview, any content that you want to give them, readings. And one thing I'd like to add about the readings is a lot of times when we add a file, it comes through and it uploads as the file name. Renaming that to just the title rather than having the file name .pdf or .docx is helpful also in navigating the course. Let's go back to here. The module template. That every time you filter, it's every time you refresh, you have to filter again. My apologies. So here are more ways that people have utilized modules that you can kind of go in and peek around at. I know that faculty sometimes wants to see what other faculty are doing, which is why I'm presenting this information to you. So that said, is there anything that I didn't cover that you would like to cover or ask questions about before we go?